But in the meantime, let's look at this. The President John Dramani Mahama yesterday took a major step at fulfilling a promise he made to cocoa growing areas of the country, where he cut sword for the takeoff of what we term the Cocoa Roads Rehabilitation Program. Now, this is what it is. The Ghana Cocoa Board is financing the project as a cost of $150 million for the next 5 years. That's it. Cocoa Roads project only for cocoa growing communities.
Yes, because the bulk of what we earn as revenue comes from cocoa. It is our main export item, aside oil. And therefore, if you want to increase what we export, we need to fix those roads in those communities so we can move the cocoa to the ports. The ports are in two areas primarily, Takoradi and Tema. And we don't airlift, we transport by road, which is perhaps the cheapest and less expensive way of doing so. How would you transport over roads that are dilapidated? That is not a good sign. So the best thing to do is to fix those roads to make moving the cocoa from the hinterlands to the ports easier. I think it's a very laudable program. I hope it can be carried out completely during the 5-year period so that it will spur on people to go into more cocoa production. Because at the end of the day, when you produce a cocoa and you are not able to haul it from the hinterland to the port, you give people the opportunity to think of alternative means of getting their cocoa out. One of the means is always smuggling. Smuggling to the neighboring countries where probably price differentials in the way we price our cocoa makes it lucrative to smuggle the goods out there. But if I can grow my cocoa, dry it, go through all the process, bag it, and get it transported to the port where I can make my revenue, I would rather favor that. Yeah.
But as far as these are concerned, the issue is about the state of some of the roads that were expected to have been in areas that should have had the longevity that they should have in terms of the durability of the roads. That calls into question the type of road that will be constructed. How would we make sure that the right roads are constructed?
You know, I agree with your the position. Yes, we must have...
Because sometimes you look at some of the routes and you said, this ideally should have been constructed adequately.
Exactly. You are right on point. A lot of our contractors do not do a good job on some of these roads. You know, they try to cut corners with regards to what has to go into constructing a road, or because of the profit margin that they are looking at. You cannot also fault them because sometimes the long processes that they go through to even obtain a contract makes it imperative for them to take some of these measures. For instance, if you have to import a whole lot of items, heavy-duty equipment, earth-moving equipment at a certain price, and by the time you are ready to do so, there's a price variation in terms of the foreign exchange component of it. You are forced to basically assess how you are going to work on that situation, and usually the best thing they think it is to do is to cut corners. You know, if you have to do a road with a span, with a thickness of a certain centimeter, you reduce the thickness and all those things. But you see, in advanced jurisdictions, you are given the leeway to do what you want to do. But you see, in the contractual agreement that you sign, it is also put in there that we expect or anticipate that this road will last this number of years. If it doesn't last this number of years, you are never allowed to bid for a government contract, ever. That's it. So we need to apply sanctions to some of these situations when people do not deliver as prescribed by their contract terms. You need to apply the sanctions, but in that situation, you try to apply sanctions as Rose means that you'll be at home at dawn and a whole retinue of chiefs will come and beg, knowing very well that the person has done the wrong thing, but they'll still come. That is the nature of our society. You understand? Applying sanctions become a problem for people who have to actually do that because of the extended family approach to the way we do things. Instead of looking at the big picture in terms of doing the right thing so that you are allowed to bid for another contract, so you make progress, we would rather succumb to the fact that I have to go and beg so that the person is relieved of the sanctions. And these are some of the things that we have to deal with as a nation. You need to take a certain step in terms of how we do something. Because I've used that road where the president was, and trust me, you can't travel at 20 kilometers per hour on that road. It was just bad. just bad. And it leads to one of the vital cocoa growing areas in the eastern region. You know, I used to go there to the Kede University of Ghana Horticultural Center at Kede, the FOREC. You know, when we were trying to develop new models, I went there to visit how they utilize greenhouses to, you know, grow vegetables and stuff. So I used the road a number of times, and I always came back very tired, my body worn out. I mean, I don't even talk about the vehicle because that suffers most, but it is good that it's being done, attention is being paid to that section of the road.
But ultimately, the citizens and the farming communities in those areas should
will benefit, yes, yes. It's a relief. I mean, apart from cocoa, food products coming from that area. They do a lot of farming in that area. And therefore, if you grow all your plantain, cassava, and you can't bring it out to the markets, you leave it to rot. You know, post-harvest losses are a critical thing in agric, and we need to look at it. One of the quickest ways to address that is to have a good road that will enable people to move their produce from the farm gates to the selling points.
You may not be working for the Ghana Cocoa Board, but this financing is coming from internally generated funds, 150 million. Is that it? Or it's coming from perhaps monies they may have borrowed?
Well, I'm not too sure where it's coming, but I won't be surprised if it is coming from internally generated funds or, you know, something that they've actually they've budgeted for, you know, doing these road networks.
Okay. In his 2015 State of the Nation address to Parliament, the President said Cocoa Board was going to finance this very program, that's the Cocoa Roads Rehabilitation Program. And among the roads currently being tackled in the eastern region are the Apidra Chebi Buntu Road, Adeso Asaman Kese, Chebi Town Roads, Suhum Town Roads, and the Aswanasia Kutia Town Roads. And so we'll have a lot more to talk about when those roads are completed. We know that the criticism has always been the government is borrowing too much. And borrowing too much, and perhaps may not get its worth. Well, how is this related to trying to have these roads refinancing themselves?
Well, you know, there are certain social infrastructure that do not necessarily refinance themselves. I mean, for roads, if you decide to do long trunk roads that are towed, then there's a measure of refinancing coming in. But roads that are not towed will not refinance themselves. Perhaps the refinancing comes in the benefits that people derive from using those roads, like we were discussing, the ability for those who farm to haul their produce from the farm gates to markets, you know. But it's an indirect benefit. It's not a direct benefit in terms of the road refinancing itself. And this is something that happens all over the world. I mean, you have to invest in infrastructure. Infrastructure is key to your ability to develop as a nation. I always use this example that in 1954, when the United States decided to build an interstate road network, you know, when you go to the US, you travel on I-95, I-90. These are all interstate road networks. It's the federal, and then states are mandated to build state roads to connect to the federal roads. Counties are mandated to build county roads to connect to the state roads. So you have a complete system in place. When they were building it, they were not looking at the benefits to be derived in terms of direct benefits. They were looking at military deployment. Military deployment, pure and simple.
In case of emergency.
Exactly. The East Coast served as a target for any attack from the Soviet Union those days because they had a major population
during the
center.
period of the Cold War.
Cold War, yes. So let's build a road network to make deployment easier. So that's how they started the internet. But today, it is told, it is now refinancing itself, highly maintained, and it is serving the purpose. Apart from rapid deployment, which has now even changed because now they have all these carriers, troop carriers in terms of aircrafts that can, the Herculeses that can bring people from one location to the other. But what benefit that is being derived is the semi-trucks that haul produce across the country. People grow cauliflower in California, and in 2.5 days, it's on the East Coast. It goes by semi-trucks because the roads are good. You sit on the summer. And that is the benefit. Putting investment in the infrastructure so that things can happen. Movement of people across the states. I mean, the time span between East Coast and West Coast is 3 hours. But people do it. Trucks go and come.
Just because the
network is there for them to do so. So benefits should not be always direct. It could be looked at from a long-term perspective, an indirect manner.
You go to a state and you see many of those fruit growing areas close to the borders of Mexico, etc.
Yes.
And they tend to do the cutting, especially for apple and so on.
Exactly. Yeah. Apple, the best place is Washington State, in the northwest, but it's sent all over.
At what point do you think that we will get to that level of development where, well, we'll get to know that it is important to have adequate pavement in communities? You don't have silting of gutters as a result of brushed sun, etc. And then we'll get to the point where roads that are roads will have to be tolled, and then they have to refinance themselves, but also because there's an understanding or a buy-in from the citizenry, just like it's done elsewhere.
Yes, you know, two critical things are important. One, investment in infrastructure. Fortunately, we've established the infrastructure fund, so it's there. We've given a leeway and a direction. Two, focus of leadership. And I'm not saying only national leadership at the top. District community leadership should buy into the fact that this is how I want my community to look like 10, 15 years from now. So I need to do A, B, and C. Third, applying standards across the world. You see, nothing is new these days. Everything that we must learn as a developing country has been done before. Nothing is new. All we need to do is to borrow the concept and modify it to suit our conditions. Our ability to understand that there is always a knowledge gap and how to address that knowledge gap is key. You see, if you don't know how to do something and the thing has already been done by somebody, what do? Go and ask how it was done. Adapt it to suit your conditions, because you have probably different set of conditions, but it is the same knowledge that you would apply, you know. So those are the critical things to get to that point where they have gotten to. Because look, I sit down like, in the budget year, when I lived in the US, when my county government said they were going to construct a road, by the end of the budget year, you see the road physically there. How are they able to do it? Because they stick to what they are supposed to do. That is focus. They use the budget in the way they are supposed to use it. It's there. You understand? You don't go through the lengthy procurement processes that we harangued ourselves with. They know that, look, a tin of milk costs 2 cents. If you move to the Midwest, it costs 3 cents because of transportation. If you move to the West Coast, it costs 6 cents. So those allowances are made so that if you're a businessman and there's a markup to be made on what you are supposed to do, because of where you are located, that thing is there for you. We go through the process here, and it takes a long time to make a single decision on one thing. And it harangues us. Meanwhile, we all know the cost of things on the market. You understand? But we go through that process, which sometimes is good, but at most times is very lengthy and counterproductive. You understand? If we keep the focus, if we have the infrastructure fund that allows monies to be raised and adequately used, if we do the things we have to do in terms of knowledge assessment and knowledge gap analysis very well, we can get to that position, because nothing is new under the sun anymore. I mean, students in the US send WhatsApp. Our students here are also using WhatsApp. We didn't invent WhatsApp. We are just adopting the technology. And we are effectively doing that to the detriment of our own self by what is happening with the examination malpractice. So it's about focus and ability to understand the knowledge gap and apply it properly. You know, China was closed, so to speak, for over 30 years. When they opened back, what are we seeing?
We're surprised.
Exactly.
We're still surprised.
Exactly. And they keep on surprising us on a daily basis.
You go to Chinese cities and you say,
you're like,
when did they build this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. That's good also. And so we hope that the developmental pattern that we always aspire to would always be getting there. But that will not come easy if we don't have the plan and make sure that as a country we follow through, especially when we have a lot of political transitions truncating the sort of development that we hope we would have had.
That is largely true. But you see, I always tell myself that, look, I started on that premise, that there's a difference between management and leadership. There is. Leadership copes with change. If the country decides that by virtue of our circumstances, through our institutions, particularly the National Development Planning Institute, this is where we want to go in the next 10 years. This is what we want to achieve. We can do that. We set the direction and everybody follows. You understand? Regardless of political party differences. Political party differences come only in the form of approaches to doing something. And it's because of our ideological underpinnings. You understand? But you see, all the world over, I'll use the Scandinavian countries as examples, the Nordic countries, they've all moved from their extreme positions to the center, because it is easier to govern from the center than from the extreme ends. The center means you are listening to what this person is saying, what this person is saying, and you are formulating policies based on what inures to the collective benefit of all of us. And that should be devoid of leadership issues, even when political power changes from country to country. After all, the Republicans and the Democrats are the only two parties, but the pace of development is consistent. What actually makes a difference in the American political system is foreign policy. While the Democrats will always favor containment, we don't want to get into so many wars, the Republicans, on a trigger of a button, will go into a war in a heartbeat, because their premise is that we've built up a lot of research in terms of how we've developed arms and ammunition. We need to use this and test it to see how effective they are. That's it.
We had the twin disasters, and apart from the floods, we also had the difficulty with the fire raging at a fuel station at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle in Accra. As a result of that, officially we had over 150 people losing their lives in the process. There have been efforts by humanitarian services and other disaster relief agencies to make sure that the victims try to pick up the pieces and move on with their lives. But there's still the concern about what the regulation should be as to how we need to have the siting of various fuel stations, how also they need to be supervised, etc. And already we're getting that the Ghana National Fire Service has suspended the issuance of permits and certificates for new fuel stations. So we're about discussing that. But your own view about what really may have been the causative factors for the floods and how we were able to manage it up to now?
Well, the causes of the floods are well known to us. I'm not a fan of open sewers.
You're not a fan of open sewers?
No, never. I'm not a fan of open sewers. So you see, when you construct open drains and sewers, the attitude of people kicks in. They always look for the easiest way to drop something. And if it's an open sewer, they drop it in, forgetting that when the sewer chokes and there's rain, we'll have a problem.
How about the maintenance, the likely difficulty in maintaining closed sewers
if
or
you build,
underground sewers?
Yes, you see,
or drains?
Good. If you build underground sewers
or drains,
and you do them based on a very portable, nice design, you don't have these problems. For instance, if you build underground sewers, that water collects in. The fact that you are able to prevent garbage, rubber, getting in, means the water flows easily. What do you do with the water in there? Go to so many locations, I mean, in other jurisdictions. They use them.
For example, you go to New York City and they have...
it's underground. And they use them.
They have a lot of water.
Exactly.
What did they use them for?
Aquifers. They treat the water and reuse it.
So those waters are used by residents for gardening and things?
Gardening. Even public establishments.
Yes. Parks.
Exactly. That's it. Plants treated and it's sent out. You understand? So it's a complex system that you are building. But at the end of the day, you are making a saving out of it. We use open sewers where everybody can drop anything in. It clogs nobody. It's nobody's business. As far as it's clogs, because we have to blame somebody when it is clogged. But we know we have personal responsibility and all of this. If I live in a neighborhood where people have already built houses in such a way that you cannot even drive your car to your house, I have a problem. Because it's the first line knowing that you really have a problem. If you can't drive your car to your house, you've built a house, you own a car, and you can't drive your car to your house. Just because people, of the way the people have built, which means they've disregarded the land use planning models that were developed for that area. Those are the critical problems that we are dealing with as a country. And until we come to that tacit understanding that we cannot continue to do that and get different results, it's not going to help us. The floods will come. You know how I determine that Accra will flood?
Is it the consistency of the rain?
No, apart from torrential rain. If I happen to be in this area, you know this...
that is if you're commuting?
Yes.
Okay.
The if you're from Adaraka,
Kojo
Thompson Road,
down.
coming down, and I read the overhead, I watch the water that is coming from Asalam down.
It's a trouble.
I said, yes, I'll just say, here comes trouble. You understand? Because you just see it, that within a matter of 10, 15 minutes, the sewers are filled to the brim. And water will always find its level. No matter how you block it, it will always find its level. 2, with fuel stations, we know they put in place all kinds of measures because by the licenses or permits that are granted them, they have to adhere to certain basic safety requirements. Adhering to the safety requirements is one thing, but actions of individuals working in the stations are the other.
Because I was just about to ask, do we need, even though it's regulatory and it's mandatory and it's something that they do periodically, do we need a fire service always prompting before you undertake? Because they will supervise, but when they leave, within that space of time from the next supervision...
Roland, that's exactly where I'm coming to. Individual actions. For instance, you purchase fuel, the truck comes, okay, you open your tank, you fill your tank, and you don't close
the cork well.
The cork very well. This one, fire service can't do anything about it. It's an individual failure. Because if you don't close it well and water gets into it, water and petrol will not mix. So the petrol will always lie on top of the water. And these are individual actions. Individual actions. Individual responsibilities. You know.
Well, we have on the line Dr. Albert Brown-Gazy. He is the Chief Fire Officer. Very good morning to you. And the action you want to take, the Ghana National Fire Service, you want to suspend the issuance of permits and certificates for new fuel stations. Are you doing this as just a panic measure?
No. What is happening is that by our statutory mandate, the LI 1724 of 2003 mandates us to issue fire certificates, fire permits and certificates based on the satisfactory submission of fire prevention, precautionary, and protective measures. It's there, and it has corresponding penalty units that has to be enforced. But what we've noticed is that most of, hello?
Please continue, sir.
Are you on the line?
Yes, we are.
What we have noticed is that there is a situation where some people go to the extent that as the team is going out on inspection, they either go to borrow fire extinguishers or they go to borrow some safety equipment, tested appliances, and at the end of the day, once the inspection is over, they return them to the owner. So we want a continuous monitoring system where virtually not only fuel stations, but general certification procedures will be done on basis of risk categorization. Your risk level, your hazard level will determine the kind of certificates that has to be issued to you. Whether it should be a high risk area, medium risk area, or a low risk area. So it is a way of risk strategizing procedures for acquisition and issuance of certificates.
So what does it mean? It means that they would have to go through some of these procedures before, all supervised by you?
Oh yes, those procedures must be there because it's a matter of complying with the provisions that have been made in the law. If that is what the law says, then I think it's obligatory and mandatory that everybody must go within the confines of the law. And one cannot just allow these regulations as enshrined in the law to be ignored. So we're going to go in accordance with the set out procedures, the legally mandated procedures, the jurisdictional procedures that have been enshrined in the contents of the law.
Dr. Gazy, were you doing these things before, even though they were enshrined in the law, or you're now just trying to intensify them?
No, we were doing these things before, but they were not very effective. I must admit that. I'm saying this because it's a matter of monitoring, it's a matter of implementation, it's a matter of identifying the weaknesses in the system and the structures and deal with them. Periodically, you will agree with me that the dynamism of societies are such that there must be, regulations, enforcement procedures, review of procedures here and there to catch up with emerging developments. And looking at the trend, it's important that we find a way of, and you know, when you even look at the filling stations, there are different types of them. You have these go people who are these small-scale filling stations in the communities. If they are classified as low risk, then others will also have to be looked at within the context of medium and high risk. So it's a question of risk strategizing our procedures for the issuance of certificates as enshrined within the context of the law.
We're just discussing in the studio that from the time that you come in and undertake a supervision, or you come and do your inspection, and from the time when you come and do the next one, are the roles that need to be played by the individuals within the service stations or wherever you did the supervision. Okay, so how do you monitor that also? Because, I mean, those ones will not necessarily be under your watch and under your purview because you're absent, basically.
No, it's a question of working out structure, not only there's a monitoring system. The stakeholders will have to play a very vital role. Apart from the fact that we've outlined the laws and procedures to them, we're also going to engage them into discussion. We're going to let them understand and appreciate the fact that they have very important roles to play when it comes to them also coming in with, you know, some kind of suggestions towards the improvement of all these things. The regional commands are also involved. They've been instructed. Districts are also going to be involved. And what will happen is that there's a checklist, you know, that requires that these safety management procedures will have to be followed. And it's going to be every 6 months. The teams will be going around every 6 months to validate the safety precautions that have been put in place. Since we are mandated by the law to do that, don't forget that other agencies also have other rules that are also mandated by law for them to enforce. We are looking at a situation of fire safety management. The fire service is by law, by the Act 537, put to ensure the prevention and management of unnecessary fires in this country. And as the legally mandated institutions responsible for fire safety management in this country, in terms of prevention, precaution, and protection, I believe we have to come up with a monitoring scheme and systems to ensure the sustenance of this inspection.
Okay. When do you hope to start all this?
Oh, next week. Next week, the task force will be put in place. They've been doing some orientation, and hopefully next week they will start going around. It's not anything that is going to be a form of a harsh kind of, you know, they are also stakeholders, but they need to be ensured that they have conformed or complied within the tenets of basic and fundamental fire safety management procedures.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Over the last week or two, we've had both the MPA and the EPA going around some of these service stations. And you get the feeling that, well, whilst one of the institutions says this should not be, this facility should not be cited, or so and so action should not be undertaken here, the other one says, well, it can happen as far as we're concerned. How do we make sure we create that synergy and congruence?
I think what we need to understand is that each agency has specific roles by legal mandate. And like I told you earlier, maybe the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for the environmental management aspect of it. Fire service is responsible for fire safety management. And I can restrict myself to only what the law mandates us to do as an institution responsible for fire safety management. I cannot hold you for whatever directives anybody might have said in the performance of his duty. So I would suggest that maybe let's restrict ourselves to the jurisdictional role, the functional role of the fire service, as well as the core duty of fire safety management in this country.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Albert Brown-Gazy is the National Chief Fire Officer for the Ghana National Fire Service. Thanks for speaking to us. And you heard what he said. Exactly. That's the right way to go?
Exactly, that's the right way to go. I mean,
but we also need to play roles as individuals,
you see,
businesses, etc.
Exactly. That's what he referred to as a checklist that they leave behind. You know, how do you close your valves? Do you do all those things? And you see, that is important, because if you don't do that, even though they have done their regulatory checks and everything, as soon as you leave, just like you're saying, people go and borrow those things and exhibit just because an inspection team is coming around. After that, they take it back, which means the station hasn't got those things. You understand? If you don't train your people properly on safety procedures that they are attentive to and should become second nature to them, you run the risk of having such situations happening.
Those are businesses, and of course, he said they don't want to be harsh. It's not as if they want to close down businesses, but they just want the right things to be done and the regulations to be followed. How then should we as citizens, ordinary citizens, be very much conscious about how we also tend to behave and undertake activities around some of these things? For example, during the situation that happened last 3 weeks Wednesday, we're told either the fire may have been caused by lightning or somebody's cigarette butt or something of the sort. It's all about being aware, isn't it?
Exactly. And I remember when I was not around, but I was around, but I read the story that people who were at the fuel station kept saying they smelled fuel.
Not only even them, even those across the street, because the whole thing had...
Yes, so if you smelled fuel, what did you do? You smelt it. Fuel is not supposed to be smelled. It's not an inhalant. So if you smelled fuel, what was your line of action? Well, how did you react? Did you ask questions? But you see, in our country, nobody's business is anybody's business. We don't care. And this is what causes a lot of these things. Things that people could have just said a word and have drawn people's attention. Nobody cares. I always use the example of sitting in a taxi or a trotro and the driver over speeding. You see everybody sitting down quietly as if nothing is happening. But the moment there is an impact of the vehicle, everybody begins to scream. The period you were silent, you could have said, driver, you are over speeding. And that would have brought the speed down, or a certain course of reaction would have taken place.
Could we have said that? If I was in a trotro,
you'd say it. Because it's your life that is at stake.
At the end of the day. Yes.
At the end of the day. But we don't seem to care about a lot of these things. You know, I haven't served at the Ministry of the Interior. Sometimes I sit down and the police is unable to crack cases. Just because people who saw things happening will not talk. And yet we sit and expect the police...
Maybe it's a phobia of the institutions that we have.
No, but you see, we don't... I don't know how to use the... Americans use the word fellow feeling. You understand?
You don't empathize with people?
Exactly. We only do so...
When it confronts us, or it consents.
Or when it's completely out.
Okay.
A life has been lost. Then we go and wail and wail and wail. But before then, there are certain steps that could have been taken to avert some of these things. But we don't. And law enforcement and some of these issues, enforcement of regulations, require people to speak up.
To follow leads.
Yes. You know, in my...
But they're not magicians, are they?
It's not. It's in my personal capacity. When I drive around and I see suspicious activity, I'll go and come back.
You drive yourself?
Yes, I drive myself.
Okay.
I'll go and come back just to observe. In fact, if you check on my phone, I have a lot of recordings of vehicles with foreign numbers moving in suspicious ways. I do. And most of the time, I'll call the police operations room and say, can you guys check into this? That is my bit, because I understand that personal security translates to national security and translates to international security.
How do we become very much aware as a population that we need to do this? For example, in the US, they see suspicious characters. And you know, they always go to watch through the curtain. They'll call. Is it 911 they call?
Yes, 911.
Yeah, they'll call.
Yes.
And then the patrol team will be there.
Exactly.
Yeah. But here we don't do that.
Because we think it doesn't concern us until the worst thing has happened.
When the criminals and a whole one was killed.
Or they've killed and they've left.
Yeah, that's true.
You understand? There are certain things that are preventive.
I guess it's a subculture.
That's what I'm saying. It's a subculture. We need to change.
We'll see how that change can come. The Business World Executive Breakfast Meeting is a leading platform for CEOs and business leaders in Ghana, and it is to meet and discuss on leading trends in Africa, as well as in business in Ghana. In the past 3 years, key speakers to the event have included Brian Tracy, the best-selling author from America and motivational speaker, as well as Sharon Lechter, a co-author of the world-acclaimed bestseller Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Oscar Onyema, the CEO of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We've also had on the bill Rosa Whittaker of the Whittaker Group and Jude Buckner, Kingdom, Zafri, among others. The 2-hour event is designed to meet the schedule of busy professionals and entrepreneurs, and is structured with a 45 minutes discussion followed by 30 minutes of Q&A. And the conversational interactive presentation format of this event allows for speakers to better connect with the audience of about 200 leading CEOs and entrepreneurs who will converge at one point in time. And well, the event is taking place this morning, almost about taking place. And so we'll go there when we have the feed, and we know it's brought to us by MTN. But